The last video established that quarter notes are worth 1 beat and that they can be identified by the stem going straight up the right side or straight down the left side of a notation. If we take a single quarter note and we break that quarter note in half, we get 2 eighth notes. Eighth notes look just like quarter notes, except that they have a single bar coming off of their stem. You'll see them a lot grouped together in groups of 4 or 2, and you can also see them by themselves. When an eighth note is by itself, the bar coming off the stem has nothing else to connect to, so it just hangs off the stem. It's still a single bar coming off of the stem though, so that's how we know that it's an eighth note. So if quarter notes are counted as 1, 2, 3, 4, and there are 2 eighth notes inside each quarter note, we need to add another syllable to account for that second eighth note, and that syllable is going to be the word and. So eighth notes are counted as 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. The counts are evenly spaced apart and they never speed up or slow down. The pace is always consistent. The beats we're going to be playing in this video are a mix of quarter notes and eighth notes, but I want you to count eighth notes out loud the entire time so that you can feel the space that the second eighth note takes up when you play a quarter note. This will help you understand the concept and will also keep the pulse of the beats consistent. If that didn't make sense to you, let's take a look at the first line. The counts are written in and lined up perfectly with what you're playing, so if there are notes directly underneath a count, you play on that count. If there are no counts underneath the count, you can say the count without playing anything. So looking at the line, we can see that we have a quarter note hi-hat and bass drum on beat 1 because there are no bars coming off of the stem. We can then see that there is nothing underneath the and of 1, so we will not play anything while we say and. This is because we're counting eighth notes now, and 2 eighth notes go into a quarter note. The 1 count is the first eighth note, and the and count is the second eighth note. It's the same for count 2. The 2 count is the first eighth note, and the and count is the second eighth note. Now when we get to 3, you can see that we're going to be playing eighth notes because now we have a hi-hat and bass drum with a single bar coming off of the stem, followed by a bass drum on its own with a single bar coming off of its stem. So on count 3, we will play that first eighth note, and on the and of 3, we will play the second eighth note. This might pose a coordination challenge because up until now, bass drums have only been played along with hi-hats at a quarter note pulse. For the and of 3 here, you are going to be playing the bass drum by itself, and it's going to happen sooner than you're used to, so be ready for that. It goes like this. Playing it a little bit faster sounds like this. For line 2, we're going to add an eighth note bass drum on the and of 1, which will sound like this. Now in line 3, we're only dealing with eighth notes, but you're going to have to pay attention to your coordination. The bass drums will be playing eighth notes against your hi-hat's quarter note pulse. But Victor, all of the hi-hats have single bars coming off of their stems. They are eighth notes, not quarter notes. True, they are represented on the music as eighth notes because of their relationship to the notes around them. But if we only count the counts that the hi-hat plays on, it would be 1, 2, 3, and 4, which is how you count quarter notes. If you're starting to feel a little lost, do not worry about it. Everything is lined up perfectly for you so that you can play the beats while counting correctly. Even if you don't get it yet, your body will start to feel the relationships between the different pulses. Make sure that you don't play any hi-hats on any and counts, and make sure that you rest your leg when it isn't playing on beats 2 and 4. Line 3 sounds like this.
3 and 4 and 1
Line 4 is deceptively challenging. On paper, it seems simple enough. The hi-hat continues to play a quarter note pulse, and your bass drum plays eighth notes the entire time, except for when you play a single snare on beat 3. Less snares should be easier than more snares, but now there's more space between snare hits, so it's easier to lose your spot, especially if you aren't counting out loud. This beat also requires some leg stamina since the bass drum is playing constantly, so speeding this up will probably be more challenging than speeding up the others. However, at the moment, you should be going slow enough that your body has time to process what should be happening. So slowly, line 4 will sound like this. When you speed it up a little bit, it sounds like this. If line 4 was tough, you'll be happy to know that line 5 is possibly the easiest beat that exists. Both hands are playing together on counts 1, 2, 3, and 4, and your bass drum will play in between each one of those hits on the ands. It sounds like this. And faster, it sounds like this. Okay, line 6 is a little bit weird at first, but when you get the hang of it, you'll be able to add some really interesting tension to the music that you're playing. With the exception of line 4, all of these beats have had a snare drum on counts 2 and 4, which is generally what you expect to hear. Line 6 flips that though and puts the snares on counts 1 and 3, with eighth note bass drums in between them. Our hi-hat continues to play a quarter note pulse on counts 1, 2, 3, and 4 on top of that. Slowly, it will sound like this. A little bit faster, and it sounds like this. This brings us to line 7. Line 7 is most likely going to be the beat once you get it down. As you become familiar with it, you'll start hearing it everywhere. Actually, that's the case for all of these beats, but line 7 seems to be the most common do something cool beat. You've got quarter notes on the hi-hat, but the snare is playing on counts 1, the and of 2, and 4, with bass drums filling the eighth note spaces between each snare hit. This is the first time you'll be playing a snare drum without the hi-hat, and while it might feel very weird at first, a hack is to remember that you're literally just alternating your hands going from beat 2 to beat 3. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and both, right, left, right, both, right, left, right, both. Slowly, line 7 sounds like this. Faster, it will sound like this. Line 8 is the last beat of this video, but it's the first beat that takes 2 measures to complete. A measure is an amount of space that contains a certain number of beats, and the number of beats in a measure is determined by the time signature, which is those stacked 4s at the beginning of line 1. The top number tells us how many beats are in a measure, which is why every beat we've dealt with has had us counting to 4, and the bottom number tells us what kind of note gets the pulse, which in this case is a quarter note. So this means that in both this video and the last video, every line we have played up until now has been 1 measure, because it contained 4 counts in it. But line 8 is 2 measures long, which means that now the notes are closer together so that everything fits on the line. This doesn't change anything, and it definitely doesn't mean that you need to play the beat faster. Spacing is irrelevant when you're reading music. All that matters is what kind of note are you dealing with, and how does it fit into the pulse. So look closely and make sure you see that we are not playing on the and of 1. Our hi-hat is still playing a quarter note pulse on counts 1, 2, 3, and 4, and our snares are playing on every 2 and 4. This leaves us with just keeping track of our bass drums. If a bass drum falls on a number, it will be played with a hi-hat. If it falls on an and, it will play by itself. So go slowly and read carefully. Line 8 sounds like this. And when you speed it up, it sounds like this. That does it for this video. See you in the next one.